The biggest insurance for women is to save your eggs. Because then you can choose when to get married, when you want to have kids.
It began with one video, Upasana Konidela speaking publicly about freezing her eggs, a choice she says gave her control and eased societal pressure.
The biggest insurance for women is to save your eggs. Because then you can choose when to get married, when you want to have kids, on your own terms when you are financially independent.
But the moment she put that choice online, it sparked a loud conversation. Is egg freezing empowerment or just another burden for women? Freezing eggs is not a simple decision, and it's certainly not cheap. In India, a full cycle costs anywhere between 1,20,000 to 2,50,000 rupees per cycle. Egg retrieval alone costs 40 to 80,000 rupees. Freezing and vitrification cost another 25 to 50,000. And then there's the annual storage fee of 15 to 50,000. A choice that promises future freedom comes with a present-day financial weight. However, more and more women are choosing IVF in India. Approximately 2 to 2.5 lakh IVF cycles are performed annually in India, with projections indicating a rise to 5 to 6 lakh by 2030. Zoho founder Sridhar Vembu responded to Upasana's post saying entrepreneurs should consider marriage and parenthood in their 20s and fulfill their demographic duty to society and ancestors. His comment immediately divided the internet. Some agreed and many pushed back, calling it simplistic and tone-deaf to the challenges women face. His comments come at a time when India's fertility rate has dipped below the replacement rate of 2.0. The debate isn't just in India. An Oxford researcher faced a flood of misogynistic comments when she celebrated earning her doctorate, highlighting a global tension between ambition and motherhood. As the debate intensifies, the dilemma deepens, because every argument in favor of delaying motherhood meets an equally forceful argument against it. Time-bound biological realities push women to plan early, but many experts say that there are options to beat the biological clock. Peak fertility and career peaks rarely align, but others argue it's the external pressure to have kids that forces panic. Career structures still punish caregiving, but critics say that real fix is men sharing caregiving duties. An always-on work culture makes motherhood even harder, but evolving workplaces are becoming more flexible than before. Egg freezing offers hope, but technology is rapidly expanding reproductive options. And while delayed parenthood can reshape life choices, many believe culture should not dictate life choices. Across India and the world, more women are choosing motherhood later in life, often with medical assistance. Celebrity stars like Kareena Kapoor Khan, Neha Dhupia, Shilpa Shetty, Hilary Swank, Cameron Diaz became mothers well into their late 30s and even early 40s. For many women today, having children later isn't a compromise, it's a choice.
The biggest insurance for women.
The truth sits somewhere between freedom and fear, between biology and ambition, between what women want and what society expects of them. Upasana's video did not just start a conversation, it exposed a dilemma nearly every modern woman quietly navigates: how to build a future without letting go of the family she may want someday. Bureau Report, India Today.
So one innocuous tweet by Upasana has landed her in a sexist storm, but also ignited an age-old long debate where it comes to that feared word where it concerns women, ambition and their biological clock, which is of course inversely proportional. Having said that, career-oriented women often face a very painful decision between ambition and biology, navigating a now or never pressure that can make every choice feel high stakes. As careers peak during the same years, fertility declines. Many wrestle with whether to accelerate family plans, freeze their eggs, as Upasana had suggested to the many girls that she had met at that college. Freeze eggs as a hedge or opt out of parenthood altogether is another option that women actually face and deal with. Each path carries emotional, financial and social weight, leaving women to balance personal fulfillment with what is very heavy in India, societal expectations, while wondering which trade-off their future self will thank them for. All of this has once again been brought in sharp focus after that one particular tweet by Upasana, where she met a group of college kids and was a little surprised where she saw when she asked how many of them wanted to get married, start a family, were more boys than girls. And then she also suggested, freeze your eggs, give yourself that freedom. But what happened was, lo and behold, like I said, she found herself bang in the middle of a misogynistic storm, with even coining of new words like demographic duty. I don't quite know what that means, but let's take it to our panel this evening. Joining me, Tara Deshpande, author, actor. Rahul Easwar, social activist and author, will be with us shortly. Advaita Kala, screenwriter and author. Poonam Muttreja, executive director, Population Foundation of India. Dr. Archana Dhawan Bajaj, gynecologist and IVF expert, director, Nurture Clinic. Tara Deshpande, you know, like I said, one particular tweet where Upasana herself came out and said that she's very, very glad that at least she's started a very healthy debate. I don't know how healthy it is, but we've seen, you know, once again, words which I wasn't really very familiar with, that women need to perform a demographic duty of sorts, where the onus of reproduction, progeny, lies on them.
This debate has several angles. One is, of course, the demographic one. Then there's the biological one. Then there's the economic one. So from a biological point of view, yes, women will have natural pregnancies and have more energy to raise kids in their 20s versus their 40s. Now, as far as demography goes, we have fallen below the replacement rate of 2.1. We're now at a national average of 1.9. But this is a bit deceptive because the state averages, on the other hand, are very different. You have several states where the birth rate is much higher, like Bihar, for instance, is 3. Uttarakhand, I believe, is 2.9. Maharashtra is 2.7. So I think you don't look at the national average alone. You look at it state-wise. You will also notice that there is a correlation in many cases between the more women are empowered in a particular state, the better their quality of life is in a state, the lower the birth rate tends to be. But I think at this point, because we have a generational surplus, we have one of the youngest, but not the youngest, populations in the world. I think for the next 20 years or so, I don't think we have to really be concerned about having more young people. I think what we really need to be concerned about are two things. One is we have a serious problem providing people with jobs. And those who are lucky to have jobs today, they are underemployed or underpaid. We also have the doomsday of AI looming, where it is being stated that 20 to 30% of people in various professions are going to lose their jobs. So I don't think from an economic perspective, producing more young people who are going to then enter the workforce and there are going to be no jobs for them is a particularly great idea at this point. But empowering women, if we want to get into the club of the top 3, top 4 economies of the world, which seems to be what our ruling party is gunning for right now, empowering women is one of the best investments that anyone can make. I think rather than them pushing out babies for the next 15 years or so, pushing out entrepreneurial ideas, pushing out career objectives, you know, in India, 15% of the capital in this country really belongs loosely to women. Do you realize how skewered that is? Men own more than 85% of capital in this country. If you want a society that is going to function in the long game, you have to give women more power, you have to give them more time. And it's sad, in fact, that women have to freeze their eggs rather than getting support from the work environments that they're in, support from their in-laws, support from their parents and friends, so that they can have children at the right time and yet not be punished in their careers for doing so. So I think the holistic approach is required for this. I don't think anyone is wrong, but I think just having, you know, a parochial view is not going to help anyone. I think we have to look at the numbers, look at the current situation, and then ask women what they want, because I think women have to decide.
You know, it's a spirited argument, Tara, that you really make. And, you know, to me, as a woman who is mid-career, you know, it comes down to one thing which many fear in India, and that's agency. Words like feminism scare people. And when you, you know, talk about misogyny, you're immediately bracketed as a feminist, and where agency of women comes into question. I think that is the number one factor which bothers me, where others decide to dictate to you whether you need to contribute to the demographic dividend of this country, or this is your demographic duty. For me, that's number one. But there is a concern because Poonam Muttreja, the fertility rate has only been falling where India is concerned. So, that demographic duty, when it really does come down, it reflects in the birth rate. But strangely, why should the onus just lie on women just because they can actually physically reproduce?
So I totally agree with you. Can't disagree with that. But I do want to say that we don't need to worry. Fertility is declining in India, but fertility will continue to grow because we have a very young population. We have 365 million people below the age 24, who many of them are or will be in a reproductive stage or age, when we will continue to have babies. And even if we have minus growth rates like Russia and many other countries, no leader, political, social, or corporate, has the authority to tell young people, women and girls, when they should marry, when they should have children. These are deeply personal decisions shaped by individuals' aspirations, family aspirations, economic circumstances, health, the mental well-being and health of the woman at a stage. Does she have anemia? 60% of women have anemia, and their relationships with their partners. And reproductive choices must remain entirely voluntary, and they are, Preeti. I'm very proud that in India today, for a long time, we have no coercion, we do not have dictation by government or government programs, which we did earlier. We had fertility control and all these things. We should be very proud that India has stabilized its population without any coercion. And the state, there is coercion where it comes to social norms and so on, but not by the government and the public. So statements urging young people to marry early and have children in their 20s reduce women to instruments of demographic goals. They overlook women's not only autonomy, but their educational and professional aspirations. What is 20? It's a very young age. And the economic and social realities that influence when they choose to have children. But the main point that I do want to make is that, women would find it easier to have children and careers if the men participated in supporting the woman equally in child rearing, child caring, household work. The entire burden falls on women, and at the same time, the state, making not just pregnancy leave available, but leave for childcare for both men and women, as many countries like Denmark, Germany, and several other countries. Germany uses demographic data for evidence-based resource allocation. Denmark supports women not incentives, but financial support. And women are able to go back to the careers. And finally, the threat that if I go to have children and take time off, I am not going to be welcomed back or get into the position that I was. Till society begins to treat this achievement, biological advantage that women have as something to be supportive of, and not leave the entire burden on women. Above all, women must be viewed as not tools for achieving demographic or political goals. India's progress depends on protecting women's rights, choices, and freedom, not restricting them under the guise of demographic concerns.
Ms. Mutreja, you make a fair point, and I would actually look at it from a perspective where why just 20s, even in 40s? If women choose not to have children, choose to have kids in their 40s, why not? Because there needs to be it's their choice, and ultimately that's, where the buck stops. I want to bring in Advaita Kala into this conversation as we also welcome Rahul Easwar into this debate. Advaita Kala, the fact is there is already, so much, stuff we don't really talk about. There's this whole emotional pressure, emotional angle where women themselves beat themselves over of whether they should have children, not have children, choose career, how will they be viewed in terms of in the cultural, societal context. There's enough going on there, and the whole emotional quotient of this debate often gets overlooked, where you divide women in terms of, their age demographic, or 20s, 30s, oh Lord, why is she having children in her 40s? Well, she wouldn't be able to care for them enough. There's, that battle in any case plays out in a woman's head, and only gets amplified where in the cultural and societal context. Ma'am, you're in mute.
Sorry about that. Preeti, as someone who's never been married and never had a child, I'm definitely an outlier as far as the sociological aspect of this is concerned. And you're absolutely right. I mean, there is a lot of have you missed the boat sort of things that come your way every once in a while. And so what? Okay, maybe it's not the boat I was waiting for at the dock. Maybe it's another boat I'm waiting for. So I mean, I don't really care, but I do recognize that's a privilege not to care the way I do. But for a lot of women, what I find so problematic about this conversation is that you just limit women to their bodies.
True.
And how their bodies can serve a collective goal. Now, that's not what being a woman is about. We are more than our biology. We are much more than that. And the fact that you think that our role and our contribution to nation building is limited to procreation, I find deeply offensive and objectionable. Every woman who walks this earth or walks in this country does not necessarily have to be a mother. Being a mother is an entirely different experience. And it doesn't just stop at bearing the child. It continues on till the kid is, I guess, alive. I mean, a lot of people, I see the relationships that people have, adult children have with their parents, is still one of nurture and caring and caregiving. So being a caregiver is also a huge role. Now, not every individual, be it man or woman, is capable of being that kind of nurturer and caregiver. And we have to accept that spectrum of emotions and relationships in both genders. There may be men who are not, not geared to be fathers. It's completely natural. The worst possible thing you can do is have a child and not be emotionally ready to handle it or financially ready to handle it, but just, go ahead and just procreate, because that's what you should do. I think it's a very dangerous, slippery slope to get into.
But, you're bang on. And, just on a lighter note, because I do see it, generationally, women are thinking different, changing very quickly. I come from a generation where, most of my friends, including me, have actually gone the route of freezing our eggs. It can be a hedge. It might not be 100%, but we've gone that route, just in case we want to, make, room if we ever want to have children. So there is at least, a bank there. You don't know if it's going to really work, but somewhere down the line you just feel better about going about your business. But I love the fact that I have a niece who's really young, in her early 20s, and if somebody asks her, if my mother asks her something, the immediate answer is MYOB, which I love, because I think ultimately it is mind your own business. So and I think that's what one really needs to look at. But I want to bring in Dr. Archana Dhawan, because we're talking about freezing of eggs. Upasana herself said in that tweet that women should have that opportunity, and it is a privilege, Dr. Archana, for somebody who's been through that process. And I advocate to every young girl, who's looking at a long career, that if you might not want to have a child today, but if you want to have a child ever in the future, go ahead, at least just freeze your eggs. But it's not easy. It takes an emotional toll. There are multiple injections involved. I know I've gone through that process. And it's not a sure shot guarantee that they'll actually, you'd be able, to have a progeny from the eggs that you freeze. And sometimes it's multiple cycles to even get that bank that you can bank on.
Absolutely. I've been listening with a lot of pride to what the people who spoke before me had to say, and it makes me feel that women in our country are getting emancipated, and how. Of course, as a healthcare provider, it is for me to advocate to some extent to women that this is the right age, this is the right body time, the body clock, the body type, etc., etc. But saying that, at no point would I want anybody to take away the freedom of taking the decision from me. For example, I got married at 22, had a child at 23. I'm a grandmother of 2 children at 56. But at the same time, I had amazing support from the family, from my partner, and I'm at the top of my career. Most of us do get this privilege, but some of us don't. And the decision whether to actually go down the baby route or not finally lies with the lady A. So that's something to figure out. But saying that, medically you cannot take away the fact that there is a right time, there is a reasonable egg quality, there is a biological clock which is ticking. The minute you cross 35, there is a decline in the egg number, there is a decline in the egg quality, there is a higher chance of having chromosomal abnormalities in the baby. And of course, the minute you cross 40, it could also take a toll on your own body. Of course, saying that, there would be several people who are amazingly fit, who will do so well as parents at 55, but then it's not just about having a child, it's also about bringing up the child. And as someone before me pointed out so correctly, it's not just procreating, creating a baby, and then, to each his own. I'm 56, trust me, I am still involved with my children, I'm involved with my grandchildren. It's an ongoing process, and it's a process I would want to respect. So saying all of this, of course, the biological clock has to be respected. Offering egg freezing is not a bad option. It has its downsides, which have to be counseled adequately. It has its amazing upside that even at 50, of course, the legal limit is 50. In your late 40s, if you do want to have biologically your own child, you have this bank, which, as you very rightly pointed out, may work sometimes, may not work other times, but at least that option exists. If this is not offered, not explained, not discussed, the option, it's a shut and close. Either you don't have a baby or you go for gamete donation or whatever way. But seeing that, it's wise to offer, but not at the cost of your liberation, not at the cost of, want for not wanting to do it entirely. I mean, for somebody who doesn't want to get married, doesn't want to have a partner, may not want to have a child out of a so-called a marriage situation, is perfectly all right. As you said, the demography hasn't come crashing. Fertility rates are declining, but then that's because people are more educated to decide that they want to have an X number of children, have an X number of children at the right time also. Of course, there are states like Kashmir where fertility rates are declining because for some amazing reason, women want to get a government job before they actually get down to getting married. So which is the kind of pressure that I would not want at least my daughter to be a part of. So the decision, the time, the mode, the way forward has to be the female's choice. And even if it's at the cost of sounding radical, it's at the cost of sounding extremely feminist, but that is the way I am, and that is the way I would want others to respect.
Fair point. And there is
doctor,
also a flip side to it, which one needs to accept. If you're going to have kids in your mid-40s, then you're going to be that much older. And, in terms of caregiving, those need to be factored in. But I also know, having said that, many women who've chosen to have children in their mid-40s and are actually great caregivers because, they're able to nurture their children better, they're financially all there, and it's a decision that they've made of their own volition. And very rarely does that actually happen where family planning, a term that we use so often. I want to, very gingerly go across to Rahul Easwar, because Rahul Easwar has been holding his head, and why do I fear? He has a very contrarian view, because Rahul Easwar is not, many suggest it's an India problem. It really is not an India problem. This is an international problem. We've seen this conversation come up, and in America, especially after Trump, it's a cycle that it's taken. It's not an Indian context. Sometimes maybe in India we are more judgmental where the society is concerned, but it's an international problem which women face across, where the pressure of adding to the demography is concerned, as they are the sole bearers of that cause.
Two submissions, ma'am. First, family is the basic unit of society, and without family, there is no future for mankind. And second, there is an honest ideological debate regarding this. Why we should be open about this. There is a liberal versus conservative. There is a progressive versus cultural debate going on with this. And even she has rightly mentioned this is the progressive India, which I don't agree with. Progressive doesn't mean anti-family.
Rahul, can I'm sorry, I'm going to give you a lot of time to put your point forward, but we're just going to explain what we are seeing on the split screen of our television. What happened, it's very, sometimes things just happen in cycles. What happened with Upasana, and you had this Zoho CEO who quote-tweeted Upasana's tweet where she actually propagated to young women that freeze your eggs, focus on your career, suggesting that what about adding to, doing your demographic duty. 10 days before that, there was this young girl, and let's get those, that story out, called Juliet. And this young girl had just finished her PhD. She's about, 28, 29-year-old. And she put forth that, just done my PhD, extremely happy. And then an influencer quote tweeted, practically saying that, how the degree looks on her, no man will ever, be interested in her. And that tweet blew up. It's got 1 million views. I think it's got multiple people reacting. Many were triggered by the response. And that, of course, a week later playing out in India. But go ahead, Rahul, make your point.
Yeah, just two submissions. There is an honest ideological divide. We can call it right versus left, or you can call it conservative versus liberal, or cultural versus progressive. This has been a healthy debate, and Sridhar, Vembu sir should be applauded for sparking that debate. It has been a very healthy debate. Both sides were very civil, and this has been a very genuine, honest debate. Let me put forward two submissions for it. World over, WHO and the other organizations accept that replacement level fertility rate needs to be 2.1. So it would be ideal for people to have not late marriages. It shouldn't be too early marriages, but somewhere around their mid-20s. If they can marry, they can have the energy, they can have the life, they can have, it will be a well-settled life for them. And I agree more with Sridhar Vembu, because we all Indians value our family in a much more meaningful way. And look at many spaces around the world, including South Korea, where the fertility rate is 0.88. Somewhere Japan is around 1.1. That's the reason why world over, right-leaning people, including Elon Musk, keeps on saying that South Korea will be vanishing from the face of the earth. Japan is going to have a demographic crisis. Please understand, 20, 30 years back, we had an issue of overpopulation. Right now, we are going into a space where we are going to have underpopulation. When we were studying in school, we were taught that population is a liability. But right now, we understand demographic dividend is our strength. That doesn't mean a person should have 5 to 8 to 10 kids like our grandfathers used to have. We need to have optimum population, and that optimum population is not only for community and society, but also for that individual, their care, their life. So a person like Upasana, who we all adore, comes from a great family. They should be giving examples or setting models. It's very, very welcoming that she wants to have kids. That family kind of structure she adores. But it would be, normal people. It would be better for them if they can have it in their 20s, so that they can spend their energy positively. And various studies across the world, including Harvard Grant Study, rightly mentioned that human life is about meaningful relationship. The happiness and health of an individual depends to a great extent on the harmonious relationships we have. So family is a basic unit of society. The right or the right-leaning cultural view emphasizes on the family, whereas the left liberal position emphasizes more on the individual. So I think I agree, or I lean more to Sridhar Vembu's point, where individual needs to have a great family, great career, and a great society, and a person can have it all. It is not that the female has to sacrifice the family for the career or their own personal life for family. There can be a balance. There can be a beautiful synergy, and many people have done that, including my family. My wife, we have 2 kids. She's a corporate woman. She has been working in the corporate for the past 20 years. You can balance. Of course, the family support needs to be there. Social support needs to be there. But let us inspire our new generation of youngsters, whereas Upasana ji was telling this is the progressive India, saying that less and less females want to get married. I would humbly urge Upasana ji and people who think like her not to give that kind of a negative message. Whereas if you are saying you are being anti-family, you are branded progressive. I think that is not a right message to give our youngsters.
Negativity is also very subjective, Rahul Easwar. And I can't really, I had to just look at all the 4 faces on your on the same panel, everyone, all of these four women had a very subtle smile on their face. Each one of them has something to say. What is ideal? It's not ideal to have a drink or a glass of wine in the evening. There are people who do. It's not ideal to reach out for, for that cigarette. Many people do. It's not ideal to breathe the air that we are breathing right now in the national capital, but we do. Idealism is something I think we really shouldn't subscribe, but I'm not the one. I want to, cut across to our panel. Poonam Muttreja had a point where you were talking about the following, the demographic dividend that we enjoy and we need to bolster on. And, it's not progressive to think that women should stave off at least having children till the time she decides to have them, or to look at having children later in life as an option she can exercise. I believe that's what you tried to say. But Poonam Muttreja, you wanted to come in. Go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah, first of all, we've had this wonderful debate today and discussions. I think to bring ideology into it and labeling is really unfortunate. Saying that, you're pro-family or you're anti-family and so you're liberal, all of this is really not necessary, because let's also face that fertility patterns cannot be changed through public exhortations. Demographic transitions unfold slowly over decades. Asking young people to marry early will have no meaningful impact, let me tell Mr. Rahul Easwar. With data back from globally and Indian data, and the meaningful impact on India's demographic trajectory, fertility rates, or workforce trends, nothing will happen with these either labeling or discourses. Now, the demographic dividend. India still has a window of opportunity for another 20, 25 years, depending on which state you are, to benefit from the demographic dividend economically, as well as I assured Mr. Easwaran, there are going to be many more babies born because we have a young population. You came late, but I'm sure you know this in any case. Instead of this labeling and saying India needs a demographic, India will have a demographic dividend because it has people, but the window of opportunity is small, and we've done very little to educate, to skill, and to create jobs. Look at unemployment, which is one of the reasons a lot of young people are choosing not to have children either early or have children late or not have children at all. So demographic transitions you must understand before you make it into a debate of this kind. And young people delay marriage and parenthood for very real reasons: rising unemployment, economic insecurity, the high cost of childcare and workplace that disproportionately penalizes women. So let's address those issues,
right,
instead of anti-pro and saying women are responsible for keeping the family progeny growing. And I am sorry, I will not be called an anti-family person, and I don't wish for anybody on this panel to be called that.
I want to bring in Advaita. Advaita, is this an ideological divide there? Because a lot has been made of that as well. We've seen an entire campaign in America run at the back of it. Rahul Easwar himself said that a lot of right-thinking people, right in the terms of this tilt, today are propagating this. You had an Elon Musk, you have that whole culture, social media trends of stay-at-home moms, wives that take great pride. Some of them are influencers. That trend also now catching where India comes into question. Stay at home, focus on family. Yeah, trad wives, exactly. So focus on your family.
Have individual choice.
Right. That's great. But it's not an individual's choice so much, Poonam. It's also trying to propagate a culture which is you're making the wrong choice if you've chosen a career. But Advaita, over to you.
Well, I mean, in the US, it went to the other extreme. Now they have a majority of single-parent homes led by women. So, they're women. So they went to the other extreme. Everything that happens in society is usually a reaction. So the trad wife movement in the US is sort of a reaction to the kind of feminism that they had, which led them into this sort of situation. Although I think it's incorrect to blame feminism on it. We come from that sort of traditional unit anyway. Like that's what most of us have seen in our own homes, the two-parent home and things like that. But society here is changing as well. From the joint family, we've moved into the nuclear family, which has increased the pressure on people when it comes to caregiving and when it comes to children. If you and your husband are at work, who looks after that kid? Are you going to go to the 80s of the US and have latchkey kids, who let themselves in to the home and turn on the TV and pop food into the microwave and heat it up and eat it? And that's really, TV is basically rearing them because you've got to work, because you've got bills to pay. So these are all very real issues that young people face in our country and across the world. And it's very simple to say, oh, go ahead, have more children, procreate. But it doesn't stop there. I reiterate that. And as for the ideological bent, I mean, I think, if you do, once you have a child, once you have your own family unit, assuming the parents stay together, because that's also becoming an issue now with the divorce rates, assuming that they stay together and you have a family unit, doesn't that also make you a little more insular? And isn't part of the whole Vasudeva Kutumbakam essence really to reach out there and expand your definition of what it means to be a family? So, it goes both ways.
Tara Deshpande, final comments.
I do understand that trying to maintain a part of a tradition that has really worked for this country. India is known to be a country that has a very strong family system, and it's really served us very well. So I can understand how important it is to preserve that advantage over, say, what's happening in the United States, where the divorce rates are over 50%. But one of the problems is this. Now, Elon Musk can wax eloquent about having children because he can afford to have a child in every country in this world. He's so rich. But for most people today, are barely able to survive even with 2 incomes to run a household. So to make this narrative that women are choosing their careers over family is really inappropriate and incorrect. Sometimes they have no choice but to work because you need the income. So I think one of the things we need to do is we need to give women time to empower themselves, corner more of the capital in this world. We need more jobs out in the market. We need jobs that are better paying. Then maybe one day it will be possible for us to go back to somewhere only one man earned and the woman stayed at home. The other concept is that the concept of family itself is also changing. What family means today has really changed, and we need to understand that trend. Today, 2 men can marry and have a family and have children. 2 women can marry and have a family and have children. So we have to keep their goals and their approach to things in mind as well. And in the good old days, people had more children because infant mortality was so high. My great-grandmother had 11 children and only 1 survived. And I come from a reasonably well-off family. And this was very common in the 50s and the 60s, where people were dying left, right, and center of everything from typhoid to typhus. So that infant mortality has fallen dramatically. So people feel less of a need to have children. And we cannot deny the fact that there is a direct correlation between women's empowerment, between a better quality of life, more wealth and prosperity, and lower birth rates. This is seen all over the world. But yes, in a country like Japan today, it has become a problem. But then again, Japan is a very different society in many ways from, say, other societies. Now, South Korea, for instance, is a very expensive place to live. You can't survive on 1 income. So what are women supposed to do then? They have to go out and work. Taiwan, for instance, now is one of those populations that has more women than men. And many women choose to remain unmarried. They choose to work well into their 40s before having children. But their happiness index and their quotient is really very high. It's a very balanced society. So I really think that we should not be looking, just as I said earlier, at national averages. We should look at state averages, because that gives you a better picture of what's really going on.
I also actually, Tara, I also actually believe that, instead of just looking at excuses to, to identify and make people understand on why women are having kids later and finding excuses for that, we need to normalize that it is okay if a woman decides to choose not having children over her career, that she decides to choose a career over not wanting to have a child.
But there are pros and cons to that also.
And those pros and cons need to be explained, because most men are not given, are not looked at in the form that, oh, okay, he didn't have a child because he was working very hard and he didn't have the kind of money.
Yes, but you have that freedom. But now when a man is 75-year-old, recently a very famous actor had a child at 80, and the internet blew up saying, oh,
Fair point.
by the time this child is 20, this man is going to be
No,
round carrying.
my limited point, Tara, is just that. My limited point is just that as a society, we need to normalize it instead of castigating women who choose not to have children over a career. It needs to be a very normal way of life instead of judging, because I think that is a word that is, in India, especially in that context, is something that we discuss even in television studios. Oh, she did not have children is because she didn't have the money. No, she just didn't feel like it. She didn't want to. It wasn't an option she wanted to exercise. But I want to get in Dr. Archana Dhawan Bajaj, the gynecologist and the IVF expert that we have on the show, to give her the last word, who want to have children, Dr. Archana Dhawan, or who want to, keep it as a possibility. The whole process of egg freezing, especially if you want enough in the bank, this is not just one procedure, there are multiple procedures involved, and is frightfully expensive for someone who really, or a woman who is young and who wants to exercise that option. How do you make that viable? How do you, for a young woman in her late 20s, in her 30s, wants to hedge on freezing her eggs, how do we bring that cost down? Do you think it's even possible?
Well, to quite an extent, if you were to look at this rationally, an average egg freezing cycle would possibly be, an expense of a couple of lakhs in the initial go, and then a very small cost for an annual maintenance. Now, for most women who are freezing eggs are the niche category, who have a good job, who have a potential to advance in their careers, who would actually want to opt for this. Saying that, of course, there will be some who would be still struggling, and wherein, as a healthcare provider, I would do in my best where I can, but the government also needs to have some bit of legislation to help such kids out, and also some bit of possibly getting this covered through an insurance program where, of course, there's rationality. You just get up for one fine morning and decide for no apparent reason to go ahead for an egg freezing is something which obviously has to be deplored. But a wise selection, who really needs it? There would be some who would have abundance of eggs even at the age of 35, but there would be some who are potentially the lot who will need egg freezing, and these are the women who should have, like a clear-cut definition. A needs it, B doesn't need it. A is a good candidate, B isn't.
Fair point.
And of course, the role of medical insurance here might be very useful.
I'm running out of time. Right, I'm terribly running out of time, and this is something that we're going to delve into deeper. We're going to have a larger, longer, debate on this. Advaita, I know you.
Very quickly.
Yes.
Very quickly, Preeti. Egg freezing is not an easy process. I mean, people make it sound like it's the easy alternative, but it's painful. It's long. It's
Advaita, you're preaching to the choir.
It's not.
I know, I've been through it, I know. So it's not an easy process, it's painful, it's long, and it's not 100%, it's not that you have a guarantee in the bag, that you have a check that will cash.
I wouldn't have you making it sound so bad.
But it wasn't so bad. To be honest, Advaita, it's not so bad. A lot of women feel that, it's terrible, too many injections, it's okay, it's dealable.
Yes.
Women go through much worse.
In good medical hands, it actually may not be as much as a nightmare as it looks.
I agree, ma'am. Dr. Archana, I do agree, because I think it wasn't so bad. But Rahul Easwar, I know you've just gotten one intervention. You have 10 seconds, sir. Make the most of it.
Yeah. So I come from a state of Kerala where we have dipped below the replacement level fertility rate. All we are saying is there should be a balance. Okay. And please remember that balance should be protecting females' freedom and family as a system too. So let us try for that balance and synergy.
All right, let's try for that balance and synergy. That balance and synergy and that equity hasn't really come where gender is concerned right now. Let's work on that first, and then we can come down to the reproductive part of it. But thank you. I really appreciate all of you for taking the time out. Thank you for joining us. This does warrant a longer debate, a deeper conversation, and we're going to try and have that next. Thank you.